The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom. Tonight's episode, the documentary Blood and Flesh, the real life and ghastly death of Al Adamson.
Chilling story proving life can be stranger than fiction.
This story reads like the plot of a bad horror movie, except this is real. And the victim, believe it or not, was a horror film director.
Macabre death, UFO docudrama.
The mystery.
Horror movie director ends up in a horror movie scenario. I just couldn't believe it.
Al Adamson. Like, who was this guy?
My claim to fame as a director, we put more on the screen for the amount of money spent than anybody else did.
Dracula versus Frankenstein.
How many ways can you distort the human mind?
What other director worked with Colonel Sanders, Charles Manson, bikers, and porn people?
A lot of breasts, blood and gore.
He was the king of B movies.
Anybody that says that, some of Al Adamson's movies were good, no, they were not.
Look at some of your great directors. They have never made 32 films.
Obviously, he wasn't a great director. You know, a lot of directors start off making B movies, but they usually graduate.
I try to train him how to direct, how to act, how to edit. He wasn't good at any of them.
Inflamed to madness and murder by the wild, provocative young bodies of the Go-Go Girls.
Any of you say anything bad about me, you're lying.
He cheated me all the time.
You had all these people that hadn't paid because it was experience for them.
We represented something he needed, youth, energy, and he was providing something we all needed a lot, opportunity.
Human zombies in blood of ghastly horror.
His business associate and his family always heard from him at least 2 or 3 times a week.
We're looking all over the country. Maybe he was kidnapped.
We're trying to tell the family everything will be okay, but we don't really know.
Are we filming?
We are filming, yes.
And I'm lying a bit, and I'm saying, Al, I don't know where you are. If you're sick, if you're dead, if you're whatever, you've got to give me a sign.
Wild beyond belief.
You can't afford to miss. The shocking scenes you're about to see are not suggested for the weak or immature.
Blood and flesh goes together like DiCaprio and Pitt. I think Tarantino saw this. It influenced Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Hey everybody, I'm a terrible. I'm a Mario. It's my terrible mashup of Love and Marriage and trying to work in some Quentin Tarantino references because, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's our documentary month here at Podcasting After Dark. It's me, Gene Siskel. No, just kidding. It's me, Tiny Z, TZ. Oh my gosh, Tiny T. And joining me as always, my bodacious co-host, Corey Stevenson, sweet, sexy C. How the hell are you?
I'm doing great, buddy. Is your brain melted from this week?
Yeah, it is officially
and it's
melted.
only Tuesday.
Yes, it's only Tuesday. Where are we going? Where the hell's the records room?
The records room.
So you're saying she moved out. Yeah, it's August. We change up our format in August every year. We started doing this, I believe, 2 years ago.
Yeah. And it's something I really look forward to, man. It gives us a reason to kind of dive into these fun documentaries, and I'm already like looking at my pick for like next year. I have kind of thinking about one that's where they basically talk about the history of the Street Fighter video game and like how that kind of blew up and everything. But That may be next year, who knows? But the point is that I love these documentary discussions.
Me too. This, from last year to now, I feel like we were bombarded with one good documentary after the other, from RoboCop documentaries to Star Wars documentaries to off-kilter, like bizarre documentaries dealing with one particular movie or genre.
Or a whole year. What's the one that the MVD just put out? Like
NVD will be putting out one. It aired actually on the CW network. Whoever watches that, 1982, the greatest geek year in history.
Okay.
The greatest year in geek history, or something like that.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and that just dropped that out of the blue like a couple months ago, and you were like, holy shit. But you also mentioned the RoboDoc. I picked that up. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet because it's I think 4 hours long or something, and I want to pay attention to it and, dive into it, but I've heard nothing but great things about it. So yeah, man. Did you pick that one up too?
I got that one. I just got the one from Severin that talks about the different Bruce Lee actors. I think it's called the Lives of Bruce Lee or something like that. The 7 Lives of Bruce Lee, something like that.
Yeah,
I got that as well from Severin. I haven't watched that yet either, but that may be my pick for next year. I'm not sure yet. But tonight's documentary that we're going to be doing is called Blood and Flesh: The Real REEL Real Life and Ghastly Death of Al Adamson. That was my pick for tonight, and it was tough because I wanted to do something. At first, I was gonna go more mainstream, but then this one was put out
by Severin.
By Severin in 2019. Well, the documentary was completed in 2019. I don't know if it actually came out until, I think it came out later on Blu-ray. But this had been sitting on my shelf for a little while now, hadn't watched it, and I thought, as good old Jack Burton says, what the hell? Let's fire it up and give it a shot. And boy, oh boy, was I pleasantly surprised by what I thought initially was going to be kind of a schlocky, just kind of homage to a 60s exploitation director, turned into quite something else watching it in completion.
I was like, where's that going? But no, I'm with you, man. My same thoughts exactly. I first of all, I'll say I don't really know much about Al Adamson. I know the movies that he's made. Some of them I've never seen a single one, so we can kind of check that mark off of the old bingo card. But it's interesting going into a documentary for someone who you don't really know anything about, and I have no connection. None of the movies have I seen or anything like that, and I really enjoyed this film. It's by the same guy who did Lost Soul: The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, which we covered last year, and that was one I brought to the table. So this half of this movie is like a history lesson, and then the other half of the movie, or maybe 2/3 of it are a history lesson, and then a third of it is like a true crime episode of a TV show. So it kind of checks off all the boxes for people, what they want to see in a documentary. But I loved it, having no knowledge of his movies or anything like that, no knowledge of sort of his death, only just that he existed as a filmmaker in the late 60s, and 70s and whatnot. So watching it and having no knowledge of anything really got me excited to kind of dig into his filmography. And the Blu-ray actually comes with what is the Female Bunch. One of his movies, The Female Bunch, is actually on there. So you're actually getting a double feature. You're getting the feature-length documentary, 101 minutes long, and then you're getting a whole full movie that he made.
Yeah, you're guaranteed to get your money's worth if you go out and buy this. Support physical media and support Severin. They're a great boutique Blu-ray company because they put a lot of time and energy into a beautiful homage to a very bizarre story. Al Adamson, like Corey said, is kind of an exploitation, sleazy sleazy grindhouse director of the 60s and 70s. I'd put him up there with Russ Meyer. I think you could compare him to Ed Wood as well, in just his execution. Very cheesy, low budget films. As he progressed, he started doing more TNA stuff, more, behind the green door, pushing the envelope. I wouldn't call it pornography because you don't see anything too graphic, but for its time, it was considered pornographic. It was definitely considered X-rated, the movies that he did. And he was a movie lover. I'd say a modern day comparison would be, Andy Sidaris, the guy who did Chopping Mall, Fred Olin Ray, those kind of guys where like they'll do a legit, traditional horror film, but then they'll do a movie soon after that will have more, sleaze elements to it. Jim Wynorski, that guy.
Yeah, Jim Wynorski,
I think he's like a perfect example of a modern day Al Adamson. Because
it's funny too, because Al Adamson, like, he's an exploitation director, like you said, but he wanted to be a musician, like actually make musicals. His favorite kind of movies apparently were just straight up musicals. So it's funny how there's this sort of soft side to him, whereas his outward facing side is more of this exploitation director. There's a certain connotation that sort of comes with that, but it seems like everyone really loved him, even though he got people to kind of work for free a lot.
Yeah. And you mentioning the fact that he loved musicals, he ended up hiring and working with a guy named Russ Tamblyn, who I think people will know from West Side Story and one of the Shark or Jet guys. He was like the main guy in West Side Story, actually.
Movie I've never seen before.
Oh, you should see it. It's good. It's cool. It's I think The Warriors pays homage to West Side Story to an extent, and a lot of gang movies that followed since West Side definitely owe a bit of a nod to West Side Story. But yeah, Russ Tamblyn, it's funny because he's interviewed now, or in 2019 or whatever, and at one point he's initially interviewed like outside of his garage at his house. That garage is right down the street from my house, because I've seen that garage open, and I've seen those things. There's a shot inside the garage, which is kind of used as like a makeshift studio. And I've seen those items in that garage when the door's open.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's cool. Russ Tamblyn lives right down the street from me. Woo, small world. But who cares? But yeah, it's cool. The documentary, like Corey said, the first half is very much a history lesson on Al Adamson's career in Hollywood. It's shockingly obvious that Quentin Tarantino was heavily influenced by this particular director, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And the stories that have been told when he made Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Down to the fact that in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when Brad Pitt's character goes to the ranch to and encounters Charles Manson and his cult, that happened in real life, and that story is basically told in this documentary.
Yeah, no, dude, I need to rewatch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I only saw it once when it first came out. Definitely want to rewatch it, but I picked up on that because I remember that scene with Brad Pitt. And then, they do mention that guy from West Side Story talks about he did meet Tarantino that one time, and Tarantino quoted his entire, speech from whatever Hell's Bikers or, whatever the movie he was in. And it was interesting that like a lot of these movies that Al Adamson would make, they would shoot it, release it as one title, like re-edit it, add some new scenes to it, release it as a different title, and then they sometimes even did that up to 4 times, where the movie by like the 4th go round has like maybe, you know, like 10 minutes worth of the original footage that was in it, but it's morphed so much by then and it's changed names so many times. But he's very, you know, economic with all of his stuff. Now, granted, you know, it seems like he wished he could have done more and, you know, could have been bigger, but at the same time, he seems to have firmly understood what he was doing, and he was making entertainment, like basically drive-in entertainment for people. He knew he wasn't making fine art. He was making just popcorn drive-in style entertainment.
Yeah, and I think the movie you're referring to is called The Female Bunch, and that was the one Tarantino fell in love with. And yeah, another guy I think of is like Roger Corman, I think was influenced, or they were working around the same time.
Yeah.
But Roger Corman was doing biker movies back then. The one biker movie that comes to mind that I love from this era is called, I think, Hell's Angels on Wheels. Jack Nicholson might have been in that one. And it's worth watching if you want to kind of toe dip into this genre of 60s and 70s biker movies, because it's edgy, it has a really dark ending to it. But in the beginning, the first half is like very like everyone's dancing and singing, and not dancing and like dancing, and there's like a beboppy soundtrack. But then it gets really dark at the end, and I feel like Al Adamson would go directly to the core of like darkness in these movies, you know, sex and sleaze, and that's what sold them. And yeah, they were definitely drive-in movies. They were grindhouse movies. I'm sure the New Beverly Cinema showed those back in the day on its, you know, regular rotation. And then Tarantino now shows them for, you know, $15 to go see a movie at his theater.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's funny, though. I didn't even think about it. We didn't plan this in any way, shape, or form, but there is a direct line from the movies that Al Adamson made and stuff like Easy Rider and that other one you were talking about with Jack Nicholson and stuff. And these types of movies were the reason that George Lucas made Star Wars, because he looked around and he was like, well, there's no like movies for kids. There's no movies that are like, because it's all like counterculture movies, you know, in the 60s and the 70s. And he's like, there's no movies for kids that are kind of like talking about mythological stuff and, you know, the hero's journey and everything. And it's just funny that my documentary that we're going to be releasing a week after this one, but Zach and I will be recording it right after this, is about the Star Wars Holiday Special. So it's interesting that there is a direct line but from Al Adamson to the Star Wars Holiday Special, essentially. Let's talk about his dad, Denver Dixon, an Australian cowboy that came to America to make movies. And when he was offered a job at a studio, he turned it down to make his own movies. I think that kind of spirit obviously was instilled in Al Adamson, but can we all admit Denver Dixon is a cool-ass name?
It's a cool-ass name, and like they surrounded themselves with cool people. Like all these people are like, this is old school filmmaking, old school Hollywood. And it's very like guerrilla style, you know, and where they weren't making any money off these movies, but they did it for a love of the movies. Yeah. His dad, I think he was definitely inspired by his dad. And I mean, he, like his dad, they found a way to carve a niche out for themselves, because he lived a pretty Al Adamson specifically lived a pretty comfortable life throughout his career.
Yeah, up until he got brained to death.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say too. So he makes a movie, I believe, called Blood Freaks. And no, sorry, it's the fucking vampire one that he does.
Which one?
Horror? Is it Horror of the Blood Monsters?
I think it's just sure. They all sound the same.
No, I want to get it right. Hold on. It's is it Dr. Dracula? It might be Dr. Dracula. It's so bad. These are also no. That's another one. no, Dracula versus Frankenstein. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. So, I think it's safe to say, like, the first 40 minutes or so of this documentary really focus heavily on kind of his upbringing, his dad, how he got to where he got in Hollywood. But then at like the 40-minute mark or so, that's when things start to get more colorful, because he makes a movie called Dracula versus Frankenstein, and it stars, well, Lon Chaney is one of the stars of Lon Chaney Jr. And
Lon Chaney Jr. Yeah.
Yeah. Who, if you don't know, he played the Wolfman. And,
I would say.
And this is 1971 now, though. And at this point in Lon Chaney Jr.'s career, a lot of these like well-known actors are alcoholics. They're falling on hard times. They're basically taking whatever they can get for a job. And for all purposes, Lon Chaney Jr. was very sweet to everybody, but he was like a raging alcoholic.
Yeah.
And could barely, get through scenes without having to drink in between. And the whole behind the scenes of this particular movie is really wild, because they hire a guy named they change his name to Zandor Vorkov, and
he was like their financing guy or something, like their producer.
Yeah, and he ends up playing Count Dracula in this movie. It's really funny. One actor, I think it's J. Carroll Nash, who plays Dr. Frankenstein. He's like reading cue cards off. It's obvious that he's reading cue cards from off camera,
but he has a glass eye, so one eye is reading the cue cards and the other eye is just looking straight ahead, and as he's talking his dentures are smacking around because they're loose. It's a shit show.
It's a total shit show. But the recollection that everyone has, time heals a lot of wounds, and I think this one in particular does, because everyone kind of looks back on it and can laugh at it. But I think at the time, probably at the time, it was a mess to make. The Frankenstein character, who gets like ripped apart by Dracula, looks like the most. I can't say what he looks like, because
he looks like the Elephant Man. His face looks like the fucking Elephant Man. It really. You can't tell where the nose is, where the cheeks are. It's like just putty on top of putty on top of putty. It's horrible. But apparently, like kids were excited for it, because it was the first movie where you had Frankenstein versus Dracula, right?
Sure.
Like it was, and people were, of course. Amazing Monsters of Screamland, that magazine or whatever.
Yes,
famous Monsters of Screamland. They covered it and everything. But yeah, this was apparently it did well for them, but I know it was panned like across the board.
Yeah, I mean, he ends up getting Al Adamson gets the moniker of Tits and Terror. Those are the kind of movies that he makes. And this, I don't think, falls into either category because it's so bad. I guess maybe Terror. I
probably
still want, I still kind of want to watch it though, because it looks really hilarious.
Yeah, I want to watch all these movies.
Yeah, these are the movies. These are the movies you watch with your buddies and get drunk or whatever, or just have a party.
But also too, like they're so silly. Like there's another one called Blood of Dracula's Castle, and it's supposed to be like Romania, but it's filmed at that castle in Lancaster, and I've actually shot there. So like when I shot when I worked for Slick Force Studio, the photography studio that would
the
shoot
Rubel House,
huh?
The Rubel House.
It looks like a castle. It's out in Lancaster. It's whatever this is. I think it's called that. Yeah, but it's whatever.
There,
yeah, whatever that castle is. That they shot. Blood of Dracula's Castle in Lancaster. So it's a castle in the middle of a desert,
yes.
And it's got a sort of a rounded rampart onto the left side of it, whatever. I've shot there before. I've been there for a photo shoot. I've been inside. It looks exactly like they were, showing and everything in the movie when they'd show clips from the movie. But it's just funny because it's supposed to be, Romania or something. And it's clearly Lancaster. It's clearly California desert,
It's like Beastmaster and, trying to look like some other world. Don't hate on us because we didn't like Beastmaster. Yeah, that movie's not good. That movie's not that good. And if you want to know why we think that, sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark, where we're covering all of Don Coscarelli's movies in the Coscarelli Factor, or as Don Coscarelli would say, the Coscarelli Factory. Sign up to Patreon now to be a part of the fun. Back to our regular scheduled programming. That movie is hilarious. And I've been to that castle too. I think that's the one I've been to. It's called Rubel's Castle.
Okay.
If you live in the LA area, you got to check it out. It's really, really cool. Find out more about Rubel's Castle on Wrap Up After Dark. And the way you listen to that is by signing up to our Patreon, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. He toe dipped into the blaxploitation genre as well, and did a movie called Black Samurai with Jim Kelly. I think most people will remember Jim Kelly from Enter the Dragon.
Yeah.
So great in Enter the Dragon. But there's some moments that he interviewed some of the cast from that as well. And, everyone enjoyed working with him. Like you said, they didn't necessarily get paid at times, but they liked working with him.
And he worked with some amazing people. Like he worked with Vilmos Zsigmond, who got an Academy Award for Close Encounters of the Third Kind for cinematography. He was also Zach, the cinematographer on The Long Goodbye.
Oh, my Elliot Gould fix.
Yeah.
We should do that movie. Yeah,
I know. I want to. And because I want to show it to Myra so she can see what Monica and Ross's dad was before Friends,
Yes.
But he worked with John Carradine a lot, someone that we loved and covered on Shockwaves. But he was also in The Howling. But this was kind of like Al Adamson's thing where he would take these old Hollywood guys who just weren't working, period. They want to work. They're just not working, and he could get them for cheap, pretty much.
Sounds a little bit like Quentin Tarantino.
Right, with Reservoir Dogs.
Yep, Reservoir Dogs, and he resurrected Travolta's career and Bruce Willis's career in Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown with Robert Forster, and Pam Grier, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think that Tarantino has a real big love of Al Adamson and the movies that he's made. I guarantee it. I'm glad what happens to Al Adamson later on in the stock hasn't happened to Quentin and doesn't happen to Quentin. So he starts, as his career kind of, I wouldn't say dwindles, but as his career goes into its twilight, he did try to do a kid movie called Carnival Magic, which is infamous for a scene where it looks like a woman's giving a hand job to a monkey.
She's rubbing his belly, but yeah, it looks like she's giving a hand job to a fucking chimpanzee.
And his chimpanzee is like really old, and the chimpanzee in the movie talks, and so it's really creepy the way he talks.
Yeah.
Al was married to a woman named Regina Carroll, who is in that movie, and she's actually been in many of his movies. They couldn't have kids, so they basically had a lot of pets, a lot of dogs.
Yeah.
And those were their kids. Regina Carroll died of cancer in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And it kind of broke Al for a while.
Yeah.
Because that was obviously the love of his life. And at that point, he moves to Indio, California, which is near Palm Springs, for anyone who doesn't know, and starts kind of living a new life down there and gets involved. I think when this happened, I thought, oh, Corey's going to be interested in this. He starts getting involved with like UFOs and starts believing, some of the UFO stories that have been told over the years.
Yeah, I did not see the UFO spin coming. And there was just like these innuendos that he may have seen something that he couldn't talk about, and she did as well. Or well, so so his muse, his wife died, and then this new lady sort of came into his life and kind of filled that void. He used her on this, like, it is never released. I don't even think it was finished, but it was like this UFO documentary. But apparently he got a lot of access to a lot of like UFO stuff, like information that I guess is not, the rest of the world isn't sort of privy to. And there's some innuendos that he might have like actually learned a little bit more than maybe he should have. And I did not see this turn coming.
No, because he allegedly finds out too much about aliens. He meets a new woman who ends up becoming his new muse, and she was like the star of this movie. And, you know, when they ask her about this alien stuff, she gets very tight-lipped and very concerned. It's interesting because, you know, when you meet like skeptics, or not skeptics, when you meet conspiracy theorists, you know, they kind of fit a certain mold. They look a certain way, they act a certain way, they talk a certain way. This woman and everyone kind of interviewed in this documentary, they don't seem like, you know, bottom feeders or like
nut jobs.
Or, you know, foil heads or stuff like this. You know, the new term weirdo, which I love. That's become the new thing. Shout out to Tim Walls.
To walls. Balls to the walls, baby. Balls
Hell
to the walls.
Oh man, that's a whole other discussion. I just love, makes me feel thrilled to be alive. Yeah, they don't fit that mold. They don't fit the mold of like, oh, these are kooks. They seem like decent people. So does it add credibility to the alien stories? Yes, it does.
Yeah. And, you know, as we sort of probably move past some of the earlier movies, I just want to say, before we get too far away, man, when they would show the posters for pretty much any of his movies, were absolutely fantastic. I just, as a broader discussion of how much I love movie poster art, especially from the 60s and the 70s. I mean, 80s had some good movie poster art, but then obviously Photoshop killed the movie poster and it just became all floating heads. You know, I mean, at one point, you know, I know we talked about it, but I had a poster of Jade, the movie Jade with what's his nuts?
Michael Biehn's in that too.
Yeah,
David Caruso.
And yep.
Linda Fiorentino.
I had that poster in my room because I liked the movie.
Me too.
But I never liked the poster.
Oh, I liked it. I liked with the woman. It's like a green poster with her leg kind of.
I think I had a more generic one. I might have had a B poster because I don't remember mine having just mostly just floating heads and stuff like that.
Oh,
so.
no, this is the one I had is her like against the wall.
No, that's awesome. That's an awesome one. I didn't have that one.
You didn't have that? Okay, so the poster I'm showing Corey right now is this all green poster with the word Jade in red, and it's Linda Fiorentino's back, and there's clearly a dude under her dress giving her,
holding her.
Know, yes, and she's like kind of against the wall. It's very sexy.
Well, okay, so maybe that was a bad example, but you know what I'm talking about. That the floating head posters that came out in the 90s and everything just freaking were the worst. So I mean, I love the fact that even some of these bad movies, these low budget movies, and one of the people that were interviewed on the documentary said, I think sometimes he'd spend more money on the poster than on the movie itself, and I think it shows because even the Frankenstein versus Dracula or Dracula versus Frankenstein poster was great. Like he had a good eye for posters.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is when posters were considered art. And I think there's a pinpoint moment when they no longer were considered art. It's somewhere in the 90s, you know, when it just became like Photoshop City. By the way, side note, Jade has a phenomenal cast, and it's directed by William Friedkin and written by Joe Esterhaus. So,
I kind of want to go and revisit that because I mean we talked. I think we talked about it when we reviewed King of New York like 4 years ago at this point. But yeah, I need to go back and revisit Jade because I do remember liking it, but I only think I saw it like once or twice. But I only saw The Hunted once or twice, and I had that movie poster up in my room, and Zach has it in his stack. We're gonna cover The Hunted one day. Who the fuck knows when?
I mean, look, if you become a patron and want to become a producer of our show, and you have
fast track The Hunted,
or Jade, if you have a big raging love of Jade, you like what I said there because I was gonna go in a different direction. Become a patron at the highest level. It's the $20 tier, and we'll break a movie down for you and give you copious shout outs throughout. And you can tell all your friends that we love you.
Because that is worth so much.
It is actually.
I know.
It's worth more than a Nolan Ryan baseball card.
Now, before we kind of get into
yeah.
the true crime aspect, you have mentioned Fred Olen Ray multiple times. He's on this documentary. Like, he was, I think, somebody that worked with Al Adamson early on.
Yeah, Fred Olen Ray, for those that don't know,
he did Cyclone, he did Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, Alienator, Evil Tunes, Star Hunter, which I always love the cover for because they reuse the Sorod costume from Masters of the Universe, and Sorod was my favorite of the bounty hunters, and he is of course the only bounty hunter that gets killed. Remember when Skeletor's like, let me make an example of you, and I'm like, of course. And even as a kid, and I saw Masters of the Universe in the theater, I knew that I loved Sorod, and I knew he was going to die because I loved him, because I learned that I was the person that kills people in movies, like Boba Fett. When I saw Return of the Jedi when I was 5 and knew Boba Fett, saw Boba Fett die, I kind of informed me that Sorod was going to die as well. But have you ever seen Star Hunter?
I'm sure I have. I will plead the fifth on many of his movies that he executive produced.
I know.
Because he did quite a few producing and executive producing of movies that would probably come on at 11:45 p.m. on Cinemax.
But now he does mostly Hallmark Christmas movies.
Earthquake. Hold on. Sorry. Earthquake.
Okay.
Whoa. It's big. Still going. That was big.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't even see, I was trying to look to see if your screen was moving or anything.
Oh, it's still going too. I can feel it. Yeah, Fozzie didn't even. Normally, dogs will be alerted.
Yeah,
she passed out on the ground over here.
Maybe, you know what? The epicenter's probably too far away, but that might have been a big one. Do you want to check on Bodhi to see if he's okay?
Yeah, because it moved the plants. Hold on.
Yeah, go check him. Just
be
go
right
check,
back.
make sure he's okay.
Oh yeah, because it's still moving.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hello, and welcome to BAMPIRE. BAMPIRE is a wildly ambitious, independent horror comedy film.
It is fun, sexy, thrilling, and unpredictable from start to finish.
On the surface, BAMPIRE is a slasher flick set in the 90s.
References Bambi, but it's not just Bambi, but horror. It's its own thing, and it has a real story to tell.
BAMPIRE is a story that I wrote to encapsulate my own experience growing up in the wilds of Alaska, seeing humankind interact with nature.
So to me, BAMPIRE is just like a fantastic horror comedy, just like a classic kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, early Scream era.
It's also a gore fest that will make you wonder if we took the actors back there and really mauled them like that.
It is going to be so wildly entertaining.
It's visceral, it's energetic, it's emotional, it's popcorn, it's candy. It feels like watching a movie. It's a movie.
And now, back to the show.
No, he's okay.
Okay.
He's all quiet on the Western Front, so.
Okay. I'm gonna keep that in, the whoa and the earthquake and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that was cool. Yeah. No, and I just checked on Bodhi, and Bodhi's doing okay. Yeah, I have. Look, I've seen a lot of his movies. I was talking about Fright Night with Jonathan Stark on a $2 late fee trivia, and we were listing all the vampire movies that came out in the 80s, and I said, have you guys seen Beverly Hills Vamp with Eddie Deason? So anyways, yeah, I mean, Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, Bulletproof, with Gary Busey. He associate produced that. That's got that famous line where Gary Busey calls someone a butthorn, whatever the hell that is. But didn't he do Out of This? No, he didn't. The one with Tracy Lords.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
No, but anyways, yeah, he's another king of sleaze. And
the king of sleaze who does Christmas movies now.
Yeah, or Lifetime movies. These guys got to work, folks. So I echo what you say about the posters. It is cool. These are the movies that these are the guys that did the movies with actors who couldn't get a job, and I really appreciate that. I know we said that already, but it bears repeating. you know, like it's hard being an actor. It's hard getting a gig. So if you can get one and you're not totally whoring yourself out, then God bless you. Do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's this documentary or mine, but somebody mentions it's like, you don't really know that you've retired from Hollywood. It's just that the phone stops ringing. And that's when it's like, okay, I guess my time is done, you know? And he even talks about, you know, Carradine, John Carradine. He's like, I think he was either drinking at the time or trying to get over drinking, but he was kind of drunk. But he was like, he'd be drunk, and then all of a sudden it's like action, and he remembers all of his lines, and then he would just like nail everything, and then it's like cut, and then he's like, blah, goes back to just like being drunk. It's like the man was an insane professional. It's just, he was old and his hands were all gnarled, which we saw in Shockwaves, how he had like crazy arthritis in his hands.
Yeah. It's really sad. And it's nice that in a weird way, they're all getting their like proper homage in this documentary. I do want to circle back really quick to what we brought up in regards to the Spawn movie ranch, because that is the actual name of the ranch in the Tarantino movie as well, because it's a real place.
It's a real ranch, and it was a movie ranch. People would actually shoot westerns and stuff there, but that is where the Manson clan would hang out or live, I guess.
Yeah, and they interview Eric Cord, who's a stuntman. That's Brad Pitt's character.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, he kind of even looks like him a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, 100%. Totally.
Yeah. So the whole idea of like Manson wanting to get his girls in the movies and be a part of the movie, it's all in this documentary, guys. That to me was one of the standout moments in this doc, where I actually rewound it because I wanted to just really get the dialogue down. Like, what were they talking about? It's creepy. So, but this is where it gets even creepier in the documentary. So Flash, pretty much towards the end of the hour into this documentary, like I said, Al moves down to Indio, and he like his what do you call it? His housekeeper. He befriends his housekeeper and like moves them into a little double wide next to his home, and she lives on the property. And then
apparently he loved her and loved her family and everything.
Loved her. She had a great relationship with him. You know, like I said, he had his dogs. And then this contractor shows up named Fred Fulford. I'm going to edit this a little bit because I don't want to spoil everything, but I'll get to the things that are because even in the trailer, they kind of reveal what happens. But this guy, Fred Fulford, shows up. He's a contractor, and he kind of has a friendship with Al as well, but their friendship kind of takes a weird turn. I won't go into details.
It kind of takes a little bit of a single white female turn.
It really does. Long story short, Fred Fulford kills Al Adamson and basically takes his life over. He forges his name with his credit cards, and it kind of gets discovered because of Guadalupe Garcia, who's the housekeeper, and the local police. And it becomes, the fact that this hasn't been made into a movie yet is surprising to me.
Yeah, really.
It will be. Yeah. Because of when Al's body is discovered and where it's discovered and how it's discovered, it is shocking stuff.
Yeah.
And Fred did kill him, but never admitted to it.
Yeah.
He's still in prison. He'll probably be there for the rest of his life because he's claiming he had a great relationship with Al. This whole thing is crazy. And Fred had a relationship with Guadalupe's like sister or cousin, like a relative named Rosa.
Yeah.
And that whole deal, there's a whole other side to that too. This aspect of the documentary this is your true crime moment. This is where people who are not a fan of film documentaries watch this part and you'll be like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah. And this is an hour and 40 minutes documentary. Like the first hour is the history lesson, and then 40 minutes is like the true crime. It could almost be like excised out and turned into its own, Netflix show or something, but it's, and not just do like UFOs come into play, but his longtime partner and best friend, when they didn't know that he had been killed, his best friend was trying to like actually psychically connect with him to just try to find him, you know? And they don't like get into like, the guy wasn't really like a psychic or anything like that. It's just, I think it was a guy who is pretty sure his friend's in some bad shit and is just like, I can't do anything else but maybe try this. And like, he literally just tries meditating and reaching out with his mind. And I'm just like, it's kind of like Luke Skywalker under Bespin, just reaching out for Leia, you know? And it's just like, yeah, and he actually got something, he claims, like actually it didn't really clue anyone in, but when you find out where they found his body, there's sort of a connection between what he sensed and where that was. So again, I didn't see UFOs coming into this, and then I didn't foresee ESP psychic abilities coming into it either. But yeah, dude, it's a very intense documentary, especially the second half of it is very, very intense because Guadalupe, I mean, she's crying in the interviews and everything. You can tell that she loved him, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bummer because, you know, even Jack Horner and Boogie Nights, you know, he might've made sleaze picks, but he still was trying to create a family unit with his cavalcade of, you know, porn stars and misfits. Yeah. Misfit toys. And I think the same can be said for Al Adamson. He's, you know, he did some sleazy movies and, you know, they interview one of the women who's like, and suddenly I'm naked in one of his movies. And then I'm asking my dad for $3,000 to help him finish the movie. And the dad's like, never going to see this money again. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Like sleazy director. Yeah. But did he deserve to die? No. And
well, you mentioned that lady says all that, but then there's another lady who worked with him on a lot of the blaxploitation films, and she's like, don't ever say a bad word about him. He was the nicest guy in the world. She said something like, if I ever even became an A-list actor, because clearly she didn't, she's like, I would have dropped everything and still worked with him because I loved and adored that man. So yeah, I seem to be more people that worked with him, even though some of the people didn't get paid and stuff, but no one seemed to have any ill will towards him.
No. This guy, Fred, is Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
It's simple as that. Like that he didn't necessarily have an axe to grind with Al. He just grinded an axe in him. No, not really. Sort of. You'll have to see the documentary to get that bad joke. Sorry, that was bad taste, but this is podcasting after dark. What do you expect? Like if this guy wasn't in his life, he would probably still be alive today.
He wouldn't be that old. Yeah, he'd probably still be directing some sleaze or directing Lifetime movies with Fred Olen Ray.
Probably. I think the desert brings out some weird people too.
Yeah.
To use that again.
People. Yeah.
Desert people are weird. And there's certain types of people that move down to Palm Springs. You know, a lot of gay dudes go down there and it's great. And they can, you know, there's a great gay community down there. It's awesome. Then there's a lot of people that go down there to kind of escape and be like hidden from things. And then there's old folks, you know, that just want to retire. And this Fred guy is clearly one of those weirdos who just, you know, had a whole lot of weirdness, whole lot of bullshit going on in his life. And unfortunately it ended the life of Al Adamson. I think this is a beautiful tribute though, this documentary. Yeah. And I think it's really well made and I think everybody should go watch it. I think everybody should, you know, like Corey said, full movies on there as well. If you want to watch that, there's other outtakes and stuff like that. So it's worth checking out. Severin again put it out. It's also free on Tubi if you want to watch it there. If you don't want to support a local small boutique Blu-ray company, but you should.
Yeah, you should, because it also has a beautiful cover. It looks like one of the old famous monsters of Screenland.
Yeah.
It looks like one of those old covers where it's all beautifully painted with all the colors and everything. For all I know, it could be the exact same artist. I don't know who that artist is, but you all recognize those covers. If you're a fan of this podcast, you should. And this Blu-ray has that cover. It looks like an actual magazine. It's great. I love it. And like Zach says, you know, it also comes with a full movie, The Female Bunch on there. They tried to restore it as best they could, and it's, you know, it's wild. But yeah, this is great, man. This Blu-ray was definitely worth the price of admission. I highly recommend it, just like you. I highly recommend picking it up. Severin does great stuff. They put out the Lost Soul documentary as well that had great cover art to it as well. And, you know, I really love the black case that Severin movies come in, like the black Blu-ray case. I love that thing, man. It looks beautiful. But yeah, it's a great documentary. I like I said, going into it, I had really no idea about him, and now I want to watch all of his movies, and I think he's freaking awesome. And I think that's right. That's the best compliment you can give a documentary on somebody.
I think so. Yeah. And you'd mentioned the cover art looks like the famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, which Forrest J. Ackerman was that was his magazine. He co-created the character Vampirella, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Which is based on Barbarella.
Yes, Barbarella mixed with probably Vampira. Yeah.
Right.
And then, of course, Elvira is a ripoff of Vampira.
Yeah. And this magazine was around forever. I think they're still trying to make. I think they might still make the magazines. At Comic-Con this year, they had a booth. And you could take pictures with and then get T-shirts and posters or whatever. So it's still a brand that exists. But Forrest J. Ackerman is in the documentary as well. Speaks a little bit to Al Adamson. If you're a fan of Hollywood, like 60s, 70s Hollywood, you'll love this.
Yeah, especially if you're a fan of like outsider Hollywood, you know, like fringe Hollywood and stuff.
For sure.
But yeah, a lot of people from who worked with him went on to do big things. So like we talked about that cinematographer. There's another cinematographer that didn't, I guess, win Academy Awards, but he also kind of went off and did some big movies as well. So yeah, he it's amazing the people he could sort of, bring together and coalesce around him to make movies, and they just make some popcorn films with some TNA and some action and just there to entertain, not trying to change the world, just trying to entertain it, So, yep, this was awesome, man. Al Adamson seems like a cool dude. Probably would have come on our show. He probably would have done an interview with us if he was alive. So, gotta give him some spiritual props for that.
I'm sure he's watching from some spaceship in the sky.
Here's hoping. So great job, buddy. Thank you for putting this one in front of me. I really appreciate it. So yeah, next week we're gonna have another documentary. We're gonna be talking about my documentary, which I mentioned sort of earlier in the episode. So I'll just say it again. We're covering. It's called A Disturbance in the Force. Basically the making of the Star Wars Holiday Special. And I didn't even think about it until you were talking about all the biker movies and stuff. And yeah, it's like I forgot. Yeah, that's George Lucas made Star Wars in sort of direct. Because of all those biker movies like Easy Rider and stuff like that. But I don't think just Easy Rider. I think movies like Al Adamson made. So yeah, I think it's an interesting back-to-back that we chose, and it wasn't on purpose, but I think it actually fits.
Yeah, I actually might throw in a biker movie down the road because there's some that I really like, and I've seen quite a few at New Beverly. So don't be surprised if a 60s biker movie shows up on Podcasting After Dark.
I'm down with that, man. And it's not a biker movie, but it's kind of a desert driving movie. I still want to do Vanishing Point at some point. Love that fucking movie. So yeah, let's get into like some 60s and 70s stuff, man. I'm down.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you guys got going on this month on $2 late fee? This is August, so yeah, what's going on?
Well, it's back to school for a lot of people. It used to be September, but I think now August has become the new back to school for a lot of people in the country. So we're covering the movie The Principal with Jim Belushi, Lou Gossett Jr., and Ray Don Chong. And we've got an interview coming up. By the time this drops, the interview should be out. An interview with Ray Don Chong. And it's wild. It's probably one of our more controversial interviews we've done.
Ooh, I'm excited.
She does not hold back on her opinions on things. She's pretty much retired from acting. She still toe dips every now and then. So she doesn't give a damn about anything or anyone that she's worked with. She's a very spiritual person, but she's a very complex person. And within like the first 15 minutes of the interview, she drops some serious fire on people. So yeah, Radon Chong is our featured interview this month. And of course, new episode of Territory Marks coming up. Already recorded that one. Huge interview that Paul and I will be releasing soon with a legendary voice from the Territory days. If you know anything about world-class championship wrestling, the Von Erichs, the Iron Claw, the name that we end up bringing up on the show is like, he's a legend. He's a legend. The man's 98 years old. You'll hear more about that later. I'm very proud of that.
Nice. Oh, dude, that's awesome. I can't wait for the Radon Chong one because I love Commando. I actually watched it the other night. A lot of times, if Myra she has to open the store the next day, so she has to get up at 4 a.m. I'll a lot of times just hang out in the bedroom while she's laying down and just pop a movie in, but I won't have the volume on, and I'll just sort of watch it. A lot of times I'll go through the old Friday 13th movies, and whatever. But I popped in Commando the other night, and I was just like, I don't even need the sound. I know exactly what's happening. I can quote the movie almost all the way through. We will cover it on Podcasting After Dark one of these days. I love Predator and stuff like that, but honestly, Commando is one of my favorite action movies of all time. I love that movie. So that's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to that interview.
Yeah, we got your question on the show
nice.
That you asked. So, and we were going to cover Commando as our movie of the month, but we decided to go with The Principal, and I'm glad we did because
I've seen The Principal, by the way. I've seen that.
Yeah, I linked it to 315 Moment of Truth.
Yeah,
and I linked it to Class of 1984. It's a mainstream exploitation. It's a mainstream teensploitation movie.
Yeah, no, I remember enjoying it. I although I did as a kid sort of I remember seeing The Substitute, and I was like, oh, that's just a Principal, ripoff type of movie. But you look deeper, and it's more of just it's a school. It's a whole genre of these tough school genre. Yeah, it's a whole. But as a kid, I was like, oh, that's just a ripoff of The Principal.
I could see that though. It's definitely owes credit to The Principal, but then it takes a kind of a left turn. The Substitute, and then they made like 5 or 6 of them after
and
that.
Treat Williams comes in like number 3 or something like that.
Yeah. Tom Berenger was the original one.
Yeah, he was original, and he might have done the second one, and then I think Treat Williams comes in on a third one, something like that. But it's awesome.
Oh, good old Substitute. Oh, good old 90s movies.
Exactly. So yeah. Thanks again, man. This was awesome. Love this documentary. Go check it out, guys. Zach, what was the full name of it again? Blood and Flesh?
It's Blood and Flesh, the real, REEL, real life and ghastly death of Al Adamson.
Nice. Awesome. Go check it out, guys. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side. Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits 2 challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV, and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.